W5FC. November 5, Officer 5.
Good evening, everyone. This is Virginia in V5S, and I will be starting this week's Skynet in about 5 minutes. So if you need to use your ears for anything before we begin, please do so now. We'll start in about 5 minutes. V5S.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Good evening, this is MD5F. My name is Virginia, and I'll be your next signal for this session of GARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. The purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may use the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and the call sign. Is there any emergency traffic or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That's me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of the transmission. The weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-in via Echolink is also possible using the W5SC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topic, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to www.w5sc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. So yes, if you go to w5sc.org right now, at the top of the page, there will be a notice about this evening's Skynet, and there you can find a link to the YouTube feed of this net if you want to see all the diagrams and slides that go with the discussion topics. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5sc.org, in that same announcement. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll also continue to do that over the air or Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. First, we'll have general announcements. Next, we'll have information from Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. Then we'll have announcements from National Space Society. Then recent astronomical discoveries. Discussion topic of the evening, selected by me, Net Control. And we'll also have What's Up, talking about the daytime and nighttime sky. Next, space exploration and space history. Constellation of the week. Space launches of the week. Visible satellite passages over the next couple days. And if there's time, astronomical Q&A and a 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Okay, so we currently have the following people check in via w5sc.org. That would be Tom, K2-18b in Corpus Christi, the Virginia ND5F at Mission Control, Cody, K2-18b in Dallas, H5DM, Reggie in Rockwall, KF5, JHA, Kaz and Bobby Cat, Milky Way Galaxy, Solar System, and he's on multiple modes. I think he's also on Echolink. N5BE, Bill in Irving, N5LIG, Dale in Little Elm, AA5AH, and that is Robert in Richardson, W5BLT, Bill in Garland, and H5PM, Tony in Bird City with the birds. So now let's start with our voice check-ins, starting with short time or low power check-ins. If you're a short time or low power check-in to Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, downtown Dallas, low power. I am prepared, if the signal strength is good enough, I'm prepared to read the space exploration and space history this evening. W5GUS.
Okay, the net recognizes W5GUS, Gus in Dallas, low power. Gus, your signal is very good. I believe we've got the net covered tonight in Brenda's absence, but if we need you, we'll certainly ask. Thank you very much for the offer. Okay, next we have round 2, general check-in. This is general over-the-air RF check-in. So if you're checking in regular power RF, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location, please.
This is November 5 Oscar Foxtrot, flight.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch.
Kilo India 5 Juliet Charlie Mike Thomas Emu. Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima Bill Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey, Bravo, 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Whiskey 5, Mike, X-Ray, Golf, Mobile, Mike in Rockwall.
Okay, that's a pretty good group so far. We have N5OF, Clay, KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch, KI5JCM, Thomas in Euless, KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch, WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, KG5WVL, James in Carrollton, and W5MXG, Mike in Rockwall Mobile. All right, so that's a good first round. Next, we'll take Echolink check-in. If you're on Echolink and you would wish to check in to Skynet, please come now. Call sign, name, and location. Okay, nothing specific from Echolink. It looks like we have several people who are already checked in on there. Okay, now any check-ins, any and all modes, Echolink, RF, low power, regular power, any power, come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. J5, J8A. Nick, I believe you said you're in McKinney. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Looks like we're off to a good start. Okay, this is Virginia. My call is NV5S, and this is Skynet. And it is now time for general announcements. Do we have any general announcement for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have any announcements for the net, please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, we've got Tony with announcements, so go right ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Virginia. I don't have much tonight. I want to mention that the Afterglow movie tonight is called Moon 02. We are discussing the MST3K version tonight at 22:30, 10:30 local time. Was the movie any good? I haven't seen it, but you probably have an opinion. Please share it with us tonight on the net. And, well, there is no meeting on the air or RACES training net tomorrow. There is an MCOM 101 net this Monday at 1900 local on this repeater. We'll talk about many things, including what it's like to be net control for the first time and lessons learned from recent public service events. Again, that's 7 p.m. this Monday on this repeater. I hope you can join us. You don't have to be an ARES or RACES member to participate. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. And, yeah, I know you didn't see the movie, but I do know that you watched a lovely pass of the International Space Station last night. I will be honest and say I interrupted my movie viewing to watch that. It was great. All right, next, speaking of space stations, the AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT net. Learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed, and you need to register on Echolink. You can find the net under Groups and asterisk, AMSAT, asterisk. Also, a live link is available on their website, www.amsatnet.com. And this net does originate in Houston, Texas. There are also 2 local nets available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others who are checked in. AMSAT Net East, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL tone 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom in 5HYP is usually our net control, and all are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club night, so no AMSAT Net East that night. The Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington Radio Club repeater at 147.14 megahertz, PL tone 110.9, positive offset. So lots of AMSAT opportunities in this area. The DARC hosts a number of other nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Check out the w5st.org website for the schedule. And Tony just mentioned it, that this Monday will be the MCOM 101 Emergency Communications. Learn about emergency communications here in Dallas from served agencies, MCOM net controls, and basic emergency preparedness. If you have an interest in emergency communications, and ham-assisted activities, join us at 7 p.m. Everyone can check into this 1-hour net. The scheduled net control is 7 in 5KRG. Saturday night is the night of nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. And here's the lineup. TechNet at 7 to 8 p.m. Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Ricky Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net controls each week. Skynet from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also news, information, satellite passes, and the Constellation of the Week. Join this popular net about ham's second most favorite hobby, astronomy. Afterglow Movie Net at 10:30 p.m. to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. And let's see, first and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the net, meeting on the air, MODA. And what's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. Daily we have the ARRL net, the National Traffic System Training Net, every night at 6:30 p.m. Learn how ethics traffic is handled on this formal training net. You are welcome to check in as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an easing net on the Irving WA5 CKF 146.72 at 9:30 p.m. every night. All are welcome to check in on any and all of these nets. And now it's time for tonight's Afterglow info for the Afterglow movie net. Tom, would you like to give us the lowdown on tonight's movie?
Well, thank you, and I'll be happy to do that, Virginia. As Tony mentioned, Moon 02 is our movie from 1969. Here's the highly accurate synopsis. J.J. Hubbard and astronaut Bill Kemp stared at the floating Pan Am lunar lander. It was executing another perfect landing at Moon Base, but as usual, the epic spacecraft held only one occupant. Pan Am was on the verge of bankruptcy, and with good reason. Load factors of less than 1% weren't paying for the fuel. Hubbard and Kemp dreamt of a better tomorrow, one with fully loaded passenger spacecraft, gambling casinos, and Walmarts as far as the eye could see. The moon was the future, and they wanted in on it. To expedite their colonization plans, they would have to capture a ceramic asteroid circling the moon, deorbit it, and then make it into the largest chia pet ever created. It would be in the shape of a monolith buried in Tycho crater, announcing its existence from a Mr. Microphone. That would fill up the lander with scientists and tourists looking for a fun time on the moon. Join us for a massive Return to the Dark Ages SF movie, Moon 02 from 1969, and taking us from landmark 2001: A Space Odyssey and back to Abbott and Costello Go to the Moon, just to deflate our positive vibes of the future. Join us tonight at 10:30. Back to you, Virginia, KE5 ICX.
Thanks, Tom, and let me guess, the single occupant on the moon lander was Dr. Haywood Floyd. All right, this is Virginia. My call sign is ND5S, and this is Skynet. And now it's time for the Texas... Oh, hold on. I need to see if there are check-ins. Hold up. Let me see. Check the sheet here. Make sure there haven't been any new people. That looks good. And are there any additional voice check-ins? Any mode, Echolink or RF? Come now with your call sign, your name, and your location, please.
Kilo 9 Alpha Hotel Oscar, Brian, mobile.
Okay, we've added K2-18b, Brian Mobile. Thank you very much for checking in. Now it's time for Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. Good evening, everyone. This is KF5JJ Chaz, and of course Bob the Cat. He's wandering around. He could jump on the keyboard anytime. On May the 23rd is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and it's also going to be held on Zoom. The featured speaker, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure about the topic. I have to look that up. Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing session. Now, on the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco. Well, have you looked outside? I'm sure tonight's stargazing was canceled due to the clouds. Oh, well. You can check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JJ, back to Virginia, or net control, in V5F, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Appreciate the announcements from Pat. And next we have Bill in 5BD with National Space Society events and activities.
Yes, thank you, Virginia. This is N5BD, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I am the National Space Society North Texas Chapter Vice President and Membership Director. My email is space@byrom.net, space@byrom.net. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. The big event each year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida, June the 19th to 22nd of this year, and I will be there. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets each month at 3:30 p.m. on the second Saturday afternoon of the month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. So this is tomorrow afternoon we'll be meeting. Our previous meeting on April the 13th, the topic was the Europa Clipper mission by Dr. Tracy Becker of Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio. Again, the next chapter meeting will be held tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, May the 11th. The meeting presentation will be on the future of NASA and commercial spaceflight. So this is a list of all the things which are planned by NASA and publicly known about commercial spaceflight companies. It will be given by our chapter president, Ken Ruffin. Our meetings are also available virtually over WebEx. Contact Bill in 5BD if you'd like to attend. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas Chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 7 people attended the April Space Rendezvous event back the last Friday of April. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday evening, May the 30th. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, N5BB, at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byram.net. That's all I've got, Virginia. This is N5BB. Back to Ned. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you so much, Bill. We appreciate the NSS announcement. And next we have Tom, K2-18b, who will be doing the recent astronomical discoveries. So it's all yours, Tom.
Thank you, Virginia. This is K2-18b, and this comes from ScienceDaily.com. Stellar collapse and explosions distribute gold throughout the universe. I wish they'd send some my way. Magnetic flares are colossal cosmic collisions. They be directly responsible for the creation and distribution of heavy elements across the universe, suggests a new study. For decades, astronomers only had theories about where some of the heaviest elements in nature, like gold, uranium, and platinum, come from. But by taking a fresh look at old archival data, researchers now estimate that up to 10% of these heavy elements in the Milky Way are derived from the ejections of highly magnetized neutron stars called magnets. Until recently, astronomers had unwillingly overlooked the role of magnetars, essentially dead remnants of supernovae, might play in early galaxy formation. This Ted Thompson, co-author of the study and a professor of astronomy at Ohio State University. I better get that right because we have a graduate here. Neutron stars are very exotic, very dense objects that are famous for having really big, very strong magnetic fields, said Thompson. They're close to being black holes, but they aren't. While the origins of heavy elements have long been a quiet mystery, scientists knew that they could only form in special conditions through a method called R process, a rapid neutron capture process, a set of unique and complex nuclear reactions, said Thompson. Collision of two super-dense neutron stars in 2017. This event, captured using NASA's telescopes, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or LIGO, and other instruments, provided the first direct evidence that heavy metals were being created by celestial forces. But further evidence showed that other mechanisms may have been needed to account for all these elements, as neutron-star collisions might not produce heavy elements fast enough in the early universe. According to this new study, building on these clues helped Thompson and his collaborators recognize the powerful magnetar flares could indeed serve as a potential ejectors of heavy elements, a finding confirmed by the 20-year-old observations of SGR 1806-20, a magnetar flare so bright that some measurements of the event could only be made by studying in reflections off the moon. By analyzing this magnetar flare event, researchers determined that the radioactive decay of newly created elements matched up with their theoretical predictions about the timing and types of energy released by the magnetar flares after it ejected heavy R process elements. The researchers also theorized that magnetar flares produce heavy cosmic rays, extremely high-velocity particles whose physical origins remain unknown. That's why results like this are really exciting. The study was recently published in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. Magnetars may provide unique insights into galactic chemical evolution, including the formation of exoplanetary systems and their habitability. Not only do magnetars produce valuable metals like gold and silver that end up on Earth, the supernova explosions that cause them also produce elements like oxygen, carbon, and iron that are vital for many other more complex celestial processes. All of that material that they eject gets mixed into the next generation of planets and stars, said Thompson. Billions of years later, those atoms are incorporated into what could potentially amount to life. Altogether, these findings have deep implications for astrophysics, particularly for scientists studying the origin of both heavy elements, and fast radio bursts bring shivers of electromagnetic radio waves from faraway galaxies. Understanding how matter ejects from the magnetars could help scientists learn more about them. Due to their rarity and short duration, magnetar flares can be difficult to observe, and current space-based telescopes like the James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble don't have the dedicated abilities needed to detect and study their emission signals. Even more specialized observations like NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope can only see the brightness part of the gamma ray flashes from nearby galaxies. One proposed NASA mission, the Compton Spectrometer and Imager, or COSI, could bolster the team's work by surveying the Milky Way for energetic events like giant magnetar flares. Although another event like SGR 180620 might not occur this century, if a magnetar flare did detonate in our backyard, COSI could be used to better identify the individual elements created from its eruption and allow this team of researchers to confirm their theory about where heavy elements in the universe come from. We're generating a bunch of new ideas about this field, and ongoing observations will lead to even more great connections, said Thompson. The study was supported by the National Science Foundation, NASA, the Charles University Grant Agency, and the Simons Foundation. Co-authors include Anurith Patel, Brian D. Metzger from Columbia University, Jacob Kahula from Charles University in Prague, and Eric Burns from Louisiana State University, Jared A. Goldberg from Flatiron Institute. That's it. That was a really interesting article. Back to you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That was very interesting, and I like that it at the end ties to the Charles University in Prague, where I once took a course in intermediate Czech. All right, this is Virginia. My call sign is NV5S, and I'm your net control for Skynet tonight. And that means I get to pick the discussion topic of the evening. So this week I will cover two related articles on the recent data from planet K2-18b. And both of these articles are from space.com. And probably many of you will recall this story a few weeks ago featuring an exoplanet that had signatures from some specific chemicals and gases that got people pretty excited. So the first article that I will read is called Doubts Over Signs of Alien Life on Exoplanet K2-18b Are Rising. This is evidence of the scientific process at work. This article is by Sharmila Kusaner, published on May 1st, 2025 on space.com. Recently, a team of University of Cambridge-led astronomers made global headlines after announcing they'd found the strongest evidence yet of life beyond our solar system. Their claims were based on the detection of sulfur-based gases in an alien planet's atmosphere, gases typically linked to biological processes on Earth. However, a quick independent analysis of the data now casts doubt on the validity of these findings. Jake Taylor of the University of Oxford in the UK, who studies atmospheres of exoplanets, used a basic statistical test to identify telltale signs of gas molecules in the atmosphere of the exoplanet at hand, K2-18b. Taylor did this in such a way that the test didn't assume which gases might be present. Instead of the distinct bumps that typically clearly indicate the presence of detectable gas molecules, Taylor saw the data appearing consistent with a flat line according to the new study, which was posted to the preprint archive on April 22nd and has yet to be peer-reviewed. What this means is that the data is likely too noisy or the signal too weak to draw definitive conclusions. This is evidence of the scientific process at work. Eddie Schwederman, an assistant professor of astrobiology at the University of California, Riverside, who was not involved with the new research, told Space.com. That's exactly what we want. Multiple independent groups or individuals to analyze and interpret the same data. This is one, and hopefully more will follow. In 2023, K2-18b of the University of Cambridge and his colleagues first announced the detection of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, on K2-18b, an exoplanet nearly 9 times more massive than Earth, located about 120 light years away in the life-friendly habitable zone of its star. This detection was made with an instrument on the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. Then on April 17th, the same team claimed it used a different JWST instrument and found stronger and clearer evidence of the molecule and a potentially life-rich ocean world when compared to the 2023 DMS detection, which was not upheld by independent analyses. On Earth, DMS is almost exclusively produced by life forms like marine algae, making it a possible biosignature in the search for extraterrestrial life. These are the first hints we are seeing of an alien world that is possibly inhabited, Mad Hosugan told reporters in a press briefing. This is a revolutionary moment. Although the announcement sparked excitement and made global headlines, scientists not involved with the research quickly cautioned that the results are preliminary and come with several caveats. Chief among them was the fact that Mad Hosugan's team reported the DMS detection with 3 sigma significance, indicating a 0.3% chance it could be a fluke, well below the 5 sigma standard, 0.00003% chance required for solid scientific discoveries. Critics also raised concern that the team's data pushes the JWST to its limits, noted the absence of expected molecules like ethane that typically appear alongside DMS, and argued that the researchers may have used a biased model that inflated the significance of the DMS detection. Taylor's findings, based on a simple model commonly used by astronomers as a first-pass analysis, add to the skepticism suggesting the detection significance was overstated. Yet, Mad Hosugan and his team remain undeterred, noting that Taylor's models are too simplistic to capture the complete behavior of atmospheric molecules in the wavelengths their JWST data represents. There's nothing in this paper that worries me or seems relevant about our results, Mad Hosugan said in an email to NPR. I am only slightly surprised that the bar is so low for a rebuttal. To confirm a discovery, results must be supported by independent lines of evidence, show strong statistical significance, and rule out non-biological explanations, astrobiologist Michaela Musilova, who was not involved in either of the new studies, told Space.com. So far, all data we have been able to review related to K2-18b do not meet these requirements. So is this back to square one? Underlying the debate is the broader question of whether K2-18b is even habitable to begin with. Recent research suggests that the planet may be too close to its star to support liquid water on its surface, placing it outside the habitable zone and contradicting earlier conclusions by Madhusudan and his team that it could be an ocean world. Moreover, scientists announced they found traces of DMS on a cold, lifeless comet in 2024, raising the possibility that such molecules could form through as yet unknown chemical processes, Musilova noted. Musilova, Schweiderman, and other experts agree additional independent analyses are necessary to determine whether the signals found by Madhusudan and his team truly represent DMS or DMDS in K2-18b's atmosphere, or are simply the artifact of noise in the data. The signals might be absent, or they could be present but currently undetectable. Either way, more observations are needed to resolve the uncertainty, said Schweiderman. If the ultimate result of this story is that the public is more circumspect about future claims of life detection, that's not a terrible thing, he said. And this is Virginia, NV5S, and you're listening to Skynet. Okay, in a related article, this is also from space.com, and this one is called The Pursuit of Truth, a letter on the boy who cried aliens. This is an op-ed by Adina Feinstein, Daryl Seligman, and it was published on April 29th, 2025. Scientists owe it to the general public to convey their results accurately and honestly. Over the last week, I, along with most of my astronomer and planetary scientist colleagues, received emails, texts, and phone calls from family, friends, and the media. Everyone was asking the same question: did we really find evidence of life on a planet outside of our own solar system? This outpouring of communication was prompted by a recent article published by the New York Times entitled "Astronomers Detect a Possible Signature of Life on a Distant Planet. Is there life out there? The existence of other technological species is highly likely. How rare are inhabited worlds in the universe? The Light Space Telescope fleet could find out." The Astrophysical Journal Letters recently published an article entitled "New Constraints on DMS and DMDS in the Atmosphere of K2-18b" from JWST MIRI. The peer-reviewed article reported a detection, albeit at low statistical significance, of the presence of dimethyl sulfide DMS and or dimethyl disulfide DMDS. DMS and DMDS can be produced both by living organisms such as phytoplankton or from run-of-the-mill chemical reactions that are not associated with life at all. However, the authors issued a press release only focused on aliens. If this news article was a wildfire spreading out of control, then every astronomer was a firefighter just desperately trying to minimize the damage spurred by the press release accompanying the paper. Why? Because the news article was exaggerated. This tale is not new to astronomers. In fact, it has played out over and over and over again. Fossilized microbes were found on Mars. Nope. An interstellar interloper was an alien spaceship. Nope. And bacterial life exists on the clouds of Venus to be tested, to name a few of our own wolves. As a collective, we can't resist anthropomorphizing the natural world. Many cultures thought there was a man in the moon until we learned that his face was a series of craters. In 1976, the Viking 1 orbiter took a photo of a face on Mars, which turned out to be an optical illusion of shadows on a hill. These claims highlight the delicate balance between philosophy and science. In philosophy, we can conceptually explore our existence and place in the universe. In science, we need hard evidence. Since its foundation, NASA has been a constant source of support for the development and the launch of observatories designed to figure out if we're alone in the universe. We want to understand if terrestrial planets orbiting other distant stars could harbor life. In December 2021, NASA launched the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, which is dedicating hundreds of hours to observing these planets to determine whether or not they have atmospheres. We want to understand if Jupiter's moon Europa has a liquid ocean with more water than all of Earth's oceans combined, hidden below its icy surface. In October 2024, NASA launched Europa Clipper, which will determine the thickness of this outer icy layer and characterize the Galilean moon's overall geology. We want to understand if Saturn's moon Titan has the proper composition to support prebiotic chemistry. In April 2024, NASA approved the Dragonfly mission, a car-sized nuclear-powered drone, to fly over and land on Titan with an estimated 2028 launch. Dragonfly will measure the composition of Titan up close and search for chemical signatures that could indicate the presence of life. All these great observatories will help us understand fundamental truths about celestial bodies. But if we want to answer one of humanity's oldest questions, are we alone, then we have to be able to communicate our results. Our ability to trust real scientific discoveries is crumbling under the weight of those who want to be the first, undermining the efforts of thousands of scientists and engineers pursuing truth with due diligence and following the rules of the scientific method we learned in elementary school. When people believe that we have found life on other planets, when we have not, we have lost more than public trust. We've lost our own direction. Flying to Europa or Titan and looking at the atmospheres of distant exoplanets are no longer the subject of fantastical science fiction stories. These aren't dreams. This is all of our present-day reality, and even some of our day jobs. When we sit at our desks and analyze data from these observatories, we are inching toward the answer we want so badly, but over-sensationalizing at best and even outright lying at worst about the results of these observatories erodes public trust and ultimately harms the very institutions working in the pursuit of scientific discovery. This comes at a critical time when the White House has proposed to slash NASA's science budget by nearly 50% and the National Science Foundation's NSF budget by up to 50%. Cutting these programs isn't just short-sighted, it's self-destructive. NASA and NSF fund science across all disciplines. Both agencies have long led and participated in global efforts to pursue scientific breakthroughs like JWST. With these proposed budget cuts, we risk losing the scientists and engineers whose research is the foundation for future mission development. We risk losing the ability to support and train the next generation of scientists. We risk missing the very voices that could guide us through our most profound discoveries. We risk losing touch with our fundamental nature to ask and answer questions about our place in the universe. The search for life beyond Earth has been an ongoing endeavor since the first philosopher questioned if we're alone in the universe. It relies on our ability to connect astronomy, biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, and even philosophy, which initially paves the way for scientific thinking. From all these angles, we will continue to pursue an answer to this age-old question. Yet in our endeavor, we must remember that our mission is greater than the research of the individual. We must not stoop to using over-sensationalized results to support our own personal agendas, and we must not forget our collective direction, the pursuit of the truth and our responsibility to share these truths, and only these truths, with humanity. And thus ends the op-ed article. To go with the first article about the doubts about the possible life signatures on a very, very distant planet. Next, I will share one of my opinions. I do think this op-ed is pretty good, but I think it got a little bit lost, and so I'll read my response to the remarks regarding science budgets being cut, and it is my observation. And I do think this is kind of out of scope of the article at first, for one thing, and it is my observation that government funding I believe could exacerbate this problem. It's become a presumption on the part of science that public funding is just a given, big public funding. Perhaps if there was no default gravy train and that scientists might be more responsible in the name of showing character and being deserving of the credibility they purport to desire. Less government funding could equal less propped up positive results in order to attract potential public or corporate benefactors. That's just one of my opinions. I also have a couple of headlines that were generated by the K2-18b story a few weeks ago, and you can contrast these two headlines. The first one is from the Daily Mail, which is kind of known to be a little sensationalist, and this headline reads, "The signature of alien life found 120 light years from Earth. Scientists detect signs of telltale biosignature of microbial life on ocean-covered planet that could be teeming with life." Well, first of all, this headline says that it assumes it's an ocean-covered planet. It's also just worded in such a way that could be very misleading. The other headline is from New Scientist, and this one I think is a lot more balanced. It says, "Astronomers claim strongest evidence of alien life yet on a faraway planet. The James Webb Space Telescope has picked up signs of molecules that, on Earth, are produced only by living organisms. But researchers say we must interpret the results cautiously." So there are two very different ways of spinning this, and I think a lot of the problem is left with scientists. It can be with scientists. There's a lot of not duplicated results out there, and a lot of scientists use data, and there's also just a lot of media, and there's more information flying around than there ever has been in the history of the world, and it's so very easy for everything to turn into a giant version of the telephone game, and before we know it, we have people saying that they've discovered life on a planet that's in another galaxy, which is kind of far away. Again, this is Virginia. My call sign is NV5F, and you're listening to Skynet. And here's a brief part 3 of my topic for this evening, and this is actually a reprise of something that's similar that happened back in 1969, but this is an article from 2017, and it's also from space.com, and I'll just read briefly from it. I'm not going to read the whole article, but this article from 2017 is called "Little Green Men. Pulsars presented a mystery 50 years ago." So this is the article is by Calla Cofield, and it was published in November of 2017. And it says, 50 years ago this month, a small group of astronomers made a revolutionary cosmic discovery explaining a phenomenon that they initially thought might come from an intelligent alien civilization. In November 1967, Jocelyn Bell, now Dame Jocelyn Bell Burnell, a graduate student at Cambridge, we're at Cambridge again, in England, made what turned out to be the first detection of a pulsar. So back in 1967, Burnell spotted an object that appeared to be flickering every 1.3 seconds. This pattern repeated for days on end, and the object didn't match the profile of a quasar, which is what she was trying to study at the time. The signal conflicted with the generally chaotic nature of most cosmic phenomenon. The researchers would later explain, in addition, the light was a very specific radio frequency, whereas most natural sources typically radiate across a wider range. For those reasons, Bell Burnell and one of her professors, Dr. Hewish, and some other members of the astronomy department had to acknowledge that they might have found an artificially created signal, something emitted by an intelligent species. Burnell even labeled the first pulsar LGM-1, which stood for Little Green Men 1. So even just the name that she chose suggested something that turned out to just simply not be true. Bell Burnell would later report that Hewitt called a meeting without her in which he discussed with other members of the department how they should handle presenting their results to the world. While their fellow scientists might practice restraint and skepticism, it was likely that the possible detection of an intelligent alien civilization could create chaos among the public, the scientist said. The press would very likely blow the story out of proportion and descend on the Cambridge researchers. According to Hewitt, one person even suggested, perhaps only partly joking, that they burn their data and forget the whole thing. So this is an issue that's been going on for a very long time, and I just thought that was, when that story came out several weeks ago, I was very skeptical. I was just due to the sheer distance of that signature and the fact that there's so little we know really about the whole universe and about how things happen. We just have so far to go. So I thought that was an interesting rebuttal to the story about the exoplanet and the discovery of possible gases that could mean a life signature. So, are there any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? I know it was rather lengthy, but I think it was a good one. Any questions or comments? Please come now with your call sign.
K2-18b question.
Okay, Thomas, what's your question?
Those far left-wing political types haven't already tried to tax the supposed aliens in another galaxy, have they?
I don't know, but I think that is probably a topic of discussion for a more political forum and probably not on the air here tonight. So thank you for your question. And I am Virginia NV5S. You're listening to Skynet. And it is time for What's Up with Chaz, KF5JHA. Take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. There's an awful lot of stuff that you covered. I'd just like to say a couple of comments. Jocelyn Bow was actually a speaker at the Columbus Astronomical Society back in the early 1980s. That was wonderful. She talked about the LGM, of course, little green men. But, of course, we know now that's pulsars. So, anyway. And if you want to know a great movie about aliens and how we discover them, the movie Contact, based upon Carl Sagan's book Contact, well, that would be a good one to watch. Ooh, that would be a good one for late night afterglow. I think we've done that one before. All right, Slide Master, slide number 2. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What Is Up, because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. Oh, I'm talking about slides because we have a video version of Skynet. Go to w5fc.org and click on the link, and you can probably get to YouTube and watch Skynet as well as listen to it. So we've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. Now, it was predicted to go supernova last year, not supernova, nova, last year. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. I can see the North Star with just my eyes from a very light-polluted location here in Mesquite. So, hopefully it'll happen. I just checked spaceweather.com, and in the right-hand column it talks about the current brightness of that star, and right now it's still at 10th magnitude. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. This image that you're seeing on the video version of Skynet was taken on Tuesday, May the 6th from spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large that at times you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. Now, over this past week, there has been a very large sunspot visible that's All you need is your solar eclipse glasses. I did that. I also used the proper number 14 welder's filter and saw it too. So if you have your eclipse equipment that we used back about a year ago, well, pull it out. You can take a look at the sunspot. It's right on the limb of the sun. You might not be able to see it if you didn't see it today. The sun is at its near its 11-year solar maximum. Now, we're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. Now, I talked about the solar cycle about 3 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. On May the 4th, the first quarter moon was the phase of the moon. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On May the 10th, oh wait, what date's that? Oh, yeah. The moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,244 kilometers. On May the 12th, the moon is full. On May the 20th, the moon is at its third quarter phase. On May the 25th, the moon is at perigee, which is the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 359,022 kilometers. On May the 26th, the moon is new. Slide Master, slide number 6, and we're going to go through a series of different events over the next couple of weeks. On May the 10th, what day is May the 10th? Oh, that's now. The moon and the bright star Spica are in conjunction in the early morning sky. That was this morning. They weren't too far apart if you can get a clear sky tomorrow morning. Slide Master, slide number 7. On May the 14th, the moon and the bright star Antares are in conjunction in the early morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 8. On May the 22nd, the moon and Saturn and Neptune are in conjunction in the early morning southeastern sky. Now, you'll need a telescope to observe the planet Neptune. Nope, not even binoculars will do. You'll need a telescope for Neptune. Slide Master, slide number 9. On May the 23rd, the moon and Venus are in conjunction in the eastern early morning sky. Venus is that really bright object in the morning sky. It's really close to its brightest that you'll see in the morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 10. On May the 25th, the planets Mercury and Uranus are in conjunction in the early morning sky and the northeastern morning sky. The Pleiades star cluster is close by. You'll need at least a pair of binoculars or a telescope in order to see the planet Uranus. I've seen it through binoculars, but you'll need to have a good star map too. Slide Master, slide number 11. Now, on May the 26th, there is a daytime occultation of the star cluster, the Pleiades, also known as M45. Oops, hang on. I advanced my thing too far. Hold on. An occultation is when the moon blocks or occults an object. You'll need a moderate-sized telescope in order to see this event since it's a daytime event. Be very careful not to point your telescope toward the sun. You can permanently damage your telescope or yourself, so be careful. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 12. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign. If you need a fill or have a question. Thought we'd get at least a question about aliens or something. Slide Master, slide number 13. So as the moon wanes in a couple of weeks, well, next week, so these words of this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live, at least right now. And then next time, actually, I'll probably be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control, Virginia. It's yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaz. And this is Virginia in D5S, Net Control for Skynet. And our next section is space exploration and space history tonight. tonight to be read by Bill, N5BB. So go right ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Virginia. This is N5BB with space exploration news. Failed Soviet Venus lander Cosmos, that's spelled with a K, 482, crashes to Earth after 53 years in orbit. The Cosmos 482 probe crashed to Earth today, May the 10th, after circling our planet for more than 5 decades. Re-entry occurred at 2:24 a.m. Eastern Time over the Indian Ocean west of Jakarta, Indonesia, according to Russia's space agency Roscosmos. Cosmos 482 appears to have fallen harmlessly into the sea. That's just one estimate, however. Other space agencies and tracking organizations predicted different re-entry locations, from the South Asian mainland to the Eastern Pacific. It's unclear when or if we'll get a definitive answer to where Cosmos 42 came down. Astronomer Gianluca Massi of the Virtual Telescope Project caught an image of Cosmos 42 during one of its final orbits as it passed over Rome, Italy, just before sunrise on May the 10th. In the photo, the probe is visible as a trail entering the field of view from the top and pointing to the bottom right corner, Massi wrote on his website. The picture is the sum of 4 images, which is why the trail of Cosmos 42 looks dashed. Next, President Trump nominates former Air Force Colonel Matt Anderson to be NASA's Deputy Chief. On Wednesday, May the 7th, President Donald Trump announced he's nominating Matt Anderson to be NASA's Deputy Administrator. Anderson is slated to be second command at the space agency behind Jared Isaacman, a billionaire entrepreneur and private astronaut who has funded and flown 2 missions to Earth orbit with SpaceX. Both nominations still need to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. By the way, an extra note here, Jared Isaacman has been at some recent National Space Society ISDC events, and he will be the kind of master of ceremonies at the ISDC I'm attending in Orlando, Florida in June. So he's a well-known space billionaire, you might say, and a private astronaut. Okay. Matt Anderson spent more than 24 years in the U.S. Air Force, reaching the rank of colonel before retiring from the service in October 2021. He's currently a vice president in Space Force and Air Force client executive at K2, a company that provides technology services to the U.S. government for a range of national security purposes. Next, Sierra Space completes ground demo of navigation satellite for U.S. Space Force program. Sierra Space announced May the 8th it has completed a ground-based demonstration of a navigation satellite prototype for the U.S. Space Force's Resilient Global Positioning System, RGPS initiative, as the military continues to explore backup options for its GPS constellation. The demonstration, conducted in a laboratory using a flat-sat setup, tested Sierra Space's satellite hardware and flight software, along with ground communication systems. Flat-sat configurations allow engineers to simulate mission operations using real spacecraft components without full assembly, speeding up development cycles. Sierra Space, based in Colorado, is one of 3 companies selected in 2024 to compete in the Space Force's RGPS program, which aims to supplement traditional GPS satellites with smaller, commercially developed systems. The other 2 contractors, Astranis and L3 Harris. Sierra Space's proposed satellite includes a positioning, navigation, and timing, that's PNT payload, developed with General Dynamics Mission Systems. The payload is designed to support both GPS and Europe's Galileo signals, enhancing global coverage and signal resilience. The RGPS program is part of a broader Pentagon push to diversify and harden its satellite infrastructure amid growing concerns over the vulnerability of large, high-cost satellites to interference or attack. The Space Force plans to select at least one design for an on-orbit demonstration in the next phase of the program. This is N5BB, and we're still in Skynet. Space-related birthdays, May 4th to 10th. Michael L. Gernhardt, May the 4th, 1956. He was on STS-69, STS-83, STS-94, STS-104. Michael J. Adams, May the 5th, 1930, X-15 Flight 191. He died when his plane crashed. He was awarded astronaut rings posthumously. Dennis H. Whitlock, May 5th, 1960, was on STS-120, Soyuz TMA-19, Expedition 2425. David Leestma, May 6, 1949, was on STS-41-G, STS-28, and STS-45. Donald A. Thomas, May 6, 1955, was on STS-65, STS-70, STS-83, and STS-94. He was on the famous Woodpecker mission, when the space shuttle got attacked by a woodpecker. He had to take it down, lay it down, and repair the damage. The woodpecker damaged, by the way, the insulation on the fuel tanks. Tamara Jernigan, May 7th, 1959, was on STS-40, STS-52, STS-67, STS-80, and STS-96. Charles Camarda, May 8th, 1952, was on STS-114. Vance Brand, May 9th, 1931, was on the Apollo-Soyuz test project, STS-5, STS-41B, and STS-35. Lisa Nowak, May 10th, 1963, was on STS-121. Ellen Achoya, May 10th, 1958, was on STS-56, STS-66, STS-96, STS-110. And this is N5BB. We're still in Skynet, sponsored by the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. This week in space history, Freedom 7. On May the 5th, 1961, the United States launched its first man in space. Alan Shepard piloted the Mercury Redstone 3 spacecraft for 263.1 nautical miles. The flight duration was 15 minutes and 28 seconds. The project had the ultimate objective of putting an astronaut into orbit around the Earth and returning him safely. The mission was a technical success, although American pride in the accomplishment was dampened by the fact that just 3 weeks before, the Soviet Union had launched the first human in space. If you want to see it, I think this is the capsule. Alan, it's on display. No, that was the Soviet Union capsule, I guess. It's on display at the Udvar Hazy, wherever Udvar Hazy is. That's all I've got. Back to you, Virginia. This is N5BB.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And at this time, before our next segment, I would also like to recognize K2-18b Antonio from Dallas has joined us on the online check-in. and I'll ask if there are any more other voice check-ins for the list. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, pretty quiet out there, but we still have more to go, so let's get on with Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, brought to you by Chaz, KF5JHA.
With that introduction, it sounds like I'm a product endorsement. Yeah. Thank you, Virginia. Slide Master, slide number 14. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Now, since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Virgo, the Maiden. And Slide Master, slide number 15, the Jokes of the Week, a very important part of Skynet, you know. Now, those of you that are over there on Echolink, you're welcome to make comments about the Jokes of the Week. The rest of you that are booing heads, I don't know if I can hear you or not. You'd have to do really a lot of shouting and yelling, okay. So here we go. It's related, of course, to the constellation. I love being married is what I heard a friend say. What would you fill in the blank with? It's great to find a lady that could be annoyed for the rest of your life. Well, that's not very funny. A lady asked the bank teller to check her balance, so the teller pushed her over. Remember, Virgo's a lady, a maiden. Yes, okay. Why did the lady fall down the well? Because she didn't see that well. These aren't very good, are they? I gave my seat to a lady on the bus, and the next day I lost my job as the driver. I need to get out of this. Slide Master, slide number 16, please. Virgo can be easily found by using the Big Dipper. Follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper to the star Arcturus, and then keep on going. Oh, Arcturus is in the constellation of Boötes. But then you continue the arc to spy the star Spica. Spica is the brightest star in Virgo. But I'm not going to talk about Spica because Virgo is famous for its galaxies. It's the realm of galaxies. Virgo has so many galaxies that I could spend a couple of hours describing just a few of them. But we don't have that much time left on Skynet, so we'll just take a few minutes. Slide Master, slide number 17. The constellation of Virgo is the center of the closest large cluster of galaxies to us and can easily take up many evenings, if not several months, of observing time. If you're looking at the video version of Skynet, then all the little red ellipses that you see on the screen, those are galaxies. Those are just the brighter ones. Wow. Without seeing several of the galaxies, you could see some of them and just one field of view through a telescope. A good star atlas is a must in this region for identifying the galaxies visible to a telescope of moderate aperture. While I'm only going to be describing a few of the brighter members here, I encourage all of you, if you have a telescope, to try navigating this area with a telescope. It would be not hard to improve your observing skills by meeting this challenge head-on. Slide Master, slide number 18, M58. With the dimensions of about 5 minutes by 2 minutes, this is one of the large spiral galaxies in this region. It is a spindle shape, oriented northeast to southwest, and is broadly concentrated at the center. There is a relatively bright star nearby to the west of this galaxy. Slide Master, slide number 19. M61 is a galaxy that is face-on spiral, about 6 minutes by 4 minutes, oriented north-northeast to south-southwest. It is fairly even in brightness except for the stellar nucleus, that some faint modeling on its eastern and western sides can be seen. Slide master, slide number 20. M84 and M86. These are relatively bright galaxies, are very similar in appearance, and are visible at the same low-power field of view. They are both considered galaxies with no visible arms. M84 is round with about 1 minute of arc in diameter and a large 1 minute of diameter core with a stellar-looking nucleus. M86 is larger, about 4 arc minutes in diameter, and fainter, but it also has a stellar nucleus as well. Slide master, slide number 21. M87 is a very bright galaxy, about 4 arc minutes in diameter, with a large core and non-stellar nucleus. It is an elliptical galaxy, which are usually the largest types of galaxies. Either that or the large spiral galaxies, but usually elliptical galaxies are the largest that we see in the universe. Slide master, slide number 22. M104 is the Sombrero Galaxy. I've saved this best object for last. This is one of the finest showpiece objects in the sky. Beautiful edge-on spiral that's 10 arc minutes by 2 arc minutes, oriented east to west, and has an obvious central bulge with a distinct dark lane running right through the galaxy. This is an object which should not be missed. I observed it during the Texas Star Party a couple weeks ago. It's fantastic, but it's also really wonderful to image. It's easy to image with most astronomical, telescopic cameras, yes. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 23. Now, there's a lot more astronomical observing objects in the program in the constellation of Virgo, the Maiden. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. In slide master, slide number 24, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Virgo the Maiden. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next week, we'll take a look at Libra, the scales. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night in 73. Back to our net control. Virginia, it's yours.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. That was excellent. Appreciate it very much. And next we'll go to Tom, K5ICX. Tom, if you want to do the space launches and the satellite passages, and of course, edit to your heart's content because we're a little short on time, so go right ahead with that in K5S.
All right, Virginia, I'll do exactly that. We have a launch tomorrow, May 11th, is Starlink 6-83. This will launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a bunch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. A little more than 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage booster will target landing on a drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. May 12th, 13th, following day, we have Starlink 15-4. This will take off from Vandenberg at SLC-4E. In California. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. A little more than 8 minutes into the flight, first stage booster will target landing on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. May 14th, Falcon 9, here we go, Starlink 6-67. This will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. The Starlink V2 mini satellites will be launched into low Earth orbit a little more than 8 minutes after into flight. First stage booster will land on the drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean to the east of the Bahamas. There's something a little different. May 15th will be the launch of Iris Test Flight 1 from Australia at the Gilmore Space Facility. They're planning to launch the inaugural flight of its Iris Block 1 rocket. The three-stage launch vehicle is 82 feet tall and is equipped with a 4.9 diameter payload fairing. The rocket is designed to set up to 305 kilograms into low Earth orbit. First mission, called Test Flight 1, does not appear to have a payload on board. Then we have May 16th. I'll give you this one, and it'll be at Starlink 15-5. This will launch from Vandenberg at SOC-4E out in California. This will launch another batch of Starlink, everybody say this together, V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit, a little more than 8 minutes into the flight. The first stage booster will target a landing on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Another ditto, wouldn't you say? All right, let me skip on over to ISS passes. Let's see here. Let me get to the map thing. And we have May 10th as good pass, minus 3.5 magnitude at 5:27 in the morning. It'll reach its highest point at 44 degrees at 5:31, and it'll fall to the south-southeast at 5:34. Next, we have two passes on May 11th. The first one's minus 3.7 magnitude at 4:43 a.m. It comes out of shadow, but it'll be about 70 degrees in the sky, so it should be pretty good even if you're up that early. And it will fall to the southeast at 4:46. Again, there's another pass on May 11th, this time in the evening, minus 1.4 magnitude at 21:20 out of the west. It reaches its highest point at 26 degrees at 21:23, and it will fall to the north-northeast at 21:26. Next up is Tiangong Space Station, the Chinese space station currently in orbit and occupied by 3 tachyonauts. We have, let's see, May 11th. There is a minus 1.8 magnitude at 5:53 a.m. It reaches its highest point at 5:57 at 58 degrees, and it'll fall to the northeast at 6 o'clock. May 12th has a good pass. That one will be minus 2.2 magnitude at 4:56 in the morning, reaches its highest point at 73 degrees. Now this one too is coming out of shadow, so you will see it around 73 degrees, so relatively high in the sky as it continues to pass to the east-northeast. And then finally, May 14th, minus 1.4 magnitude. That one will be, oh, I think I read that one, didn't I? Well, okay, I must have missed one. But at any rate, all of this information is available at heavensabove.com, and just plug in your information, longitude and latitude, or nearest city near you, and that it will pick up in the pull down, and it will give you all of this information, including amateur satellite stuff as well. So no special programs required. Back to you, Virginia, KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and we appreciate all that. It's a lot, finished in the nick of time. So before we begin Skynet, I will take any additional check-ins. Anyone who would like to get on the list for Skynet this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Alrighty, nothing heard. So, thanks everyone so much. Tonight we had 21 hams participating on the air. Thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit.
I'm completely
We're always
operational,
looking for
and all my
control
circuits are
stations for
functioning
this
perfectly.
and all other
Afterglow
DARC
Movie Net.
nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5sd.org. And I'm sorry, I just stomped all over poor Hal. He's always loving to introduce the Afterglow net. You can also follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5sd.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing the net at, what time is it? 10:30 local time. And returning this repeater to abnormal amateur use as we will begin the Afterglow net in about 5 minutes. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place for Skynet. This is Virginia, NV5F. Good night.
Thank you, Virginia. And as she said, we'll be back in about 5 minutes to begin the net for the 1969 movie Moon 02. Oh boy. So come back then. Go make your popcorn, come back, sit down. And even if you haven't seen the movie, we'll still talk about it and ask you, would you be willing to watch this thing if you had the opportunity to spend 90 minutes of your life to watch it? We'll find out, won't we? Back in 5. KE5, ICX. All right, we're back for the final net of the evening, which is the Afterglow Movie Net. What is the Afterglow Movie Net? Good question. We're never really sure, but it usually has something to do with a movie. Usually a science fiction movie, but not always. And it's usually pretty bad, although that isn't the intent. Sometimes we even watch good movies. But in this one, I'm not so sure. Moon 02 is the movie that we were assigned this week. And let me tell you about it, and then I'll tell you what the net is the first time you've heard of it, of us. Moon 02 is a 1969 British science fiction film from Hammer Films, directed by Roy Ward Baker and starring a bunch of people I've never heard. Well, wait. James Olsen, Catherine Schell, she was on Space 1999, I remember her. Warren Mitchell and Adrian Corey. The screenplay was by Michael Krars from an original story by Gavin Lyle. I'm sure he had bad drugs. That's the only way he could have written this thing. Frank Hardman and Martin Davidson. Film takes place on the moon on April 8th, which was, by the way, or I mean May 9th. May 9th, I think it was, 2021. Let's see. A former astronaut turned salvager helps a millionaire space industrialist capture a sapphire asteroid while also helping a woman find her missing brother. That's the story. Let me read you. Let me see how bad. Oh, my goodness. This may be longer than I thought, but I don't know. This may not be a long net. May 2021, the moon is in the process of being colonized. It's the new frontier and is attracting diverse human populations of lunar settlements like the Moon City, Farside 5, and others. The denizens of this rough-and-tumble lunar society are the notorious millionaire J.J. Hubbard and former astronaut-turned-satellite salvager Bill Kemp, the first man to set foot on Mars. He left Space Corporation because he wants to explore space, while his former employer only wants to operate commercial passenger flights to and from Mars and Venus. When Hubbard hears about a small 6,000-ton asteroid made of pure ceramic sapphire that is in low Earth lunar orbit, he hires Kemp to capture it with the Kemp's old Moon 02 space ferry. Kemp is transported down to the surface of the lunar's far side, even though doing so would be against Space Corporation law. Kemp, however, has little choice because he's learned from Hubbard that his flight license will soon be revoked due to protests from Space Corporation. Hubbard also reveals his plans to use this giant sapphire for building much improved rocket engine thermal insulators, profiting from the need for even more powerful rockets to colonize Mercury and the moons of Jupiter. A young woman named Clementine arrives looking for her brother and minor prospector working in a distance patch of moonscape on Spectacle Crater on the lunar far side. Unfortunately, the trip from Moon City to the near site takes 6 days with a wheeled lunar vehicle. Since Kemp can only go there much more quickly using his Moon 02, she convinces him to help her learn if her brother is still alive. The terrain around his camp is not suitable, so Ken and Clementine land and travel the remaining distance with the transport buggy. The two discover that Clementine's brother is dead and that he was murdered for his discovery of large vein of nickel, which would make him a rich man. They are shot at by some of Hubbard's men who have followed them to the camp. Kemp takes them out one by one. Clementine because Hubbard is the one responsible for her brother's death. Surprise! He used to claim to be abandoned so that he could take control of it and use it as an isolated landing site for the Sapphire asteroid. Hubbard blackmails Kemp into completing the asteroid job by threatening his and Clementine's lives. Kemp is later forced to kill one of Hubbard's men in a shootout. He also strands Hubbard and his remaining man on the giant Sapphire. Just before the attached retro-rocket fires, sending it hurtling towards the lunar surface. With Clementine being his brother's next of kin, she is now legal ownership of the nickel vein and nearly crashed Sapphire asteroid, making her a very wealthy woman. The end. Okay. So here's the game. Well, there's more they can talk about, but no, I'm not going to. Maybe I'll bring something up in my part when it's my turn to talk about this film. So that's what we'll do. We'll take check-ins, find out if you've seen the film. We'll go by call sign name and did you see the film. Then we'll ask you, what do you think about the plot? First round. Second round is what you think of the acting and the characterization. And the third round probably be abbreviated, but who knows what you think of the special or not so special effects, music, dancing. Yeah, there was dancing in this thing, multiple numbers. And was this thing a comedy, a parody, or a drama, or none of the above? You make the call. Let's go ahead and get started. I will take changes. Please come.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill, yes, I saw this movie.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I did not see the movie, but I'll be listening to see if I should.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zoo Whiskey J. No effort. I did see the film in 360p.
November Victor 5 Fox. This is Virginia in Fort Worth. I did see the movie, and Tony, you should definitely see it, even if it's just for the Mystery Science Theater aspect. NV5F.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, Bill. Oh, I saw this twice.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Name is Brenda. I'm mobile right now. Just coming back from a wonderful evening with the kids. And I did see this movie.
This is Doug, Kilo Juliet 5, Delta Zulu Charlie. I did not see the movie, but I'm very curious now.
All right, let me go ahead and get all these folks checked in. I think I doubled, but I'm pretty sure that was Bill N5BB, Bill in Irving. Bill, did you see the film?
Yes, I did see the film. This is Bill in 5BB.
All right, excellent. I've got you down first on the list with having seen this fine film. I've got Tony, NT5TM in Dallas. No, he did not see the film, but we will ask him if he would be willing to watch it and spend part of the rest of his life watching this fine film. So we'll do that. KG5BZW, Mr. J is back. He's near Weatherford. Yes, he saw the film. NV5F, Virginia, and Fort Worth. She semi-enthusiastically saw the film. W5BLT, Bill, I think he's somewhere, but he said yes, he saw the film. WB5OZL, Brenda's mobile, yes, she saw the film. And KJ5DZC, Doug, no, he did not see the film, but we'll ask him if he would be willing to spend part of his life watching the film. Anyone else want to check in? Please come now. All right, let's blast off. We'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, what did you think of this plot of the future from the year 2021? Is it everything you think 2021 will be? And what do you think about commercialization of the moon and beyond from KE5 ICX?
Oh my, this is N5BB. Well, this is billed as the first space Western. Literally, it's billed as that. And it had bar scenes with fights. It had lots of guns and pistols and shooting. had people riding things. They weren't horses or buffalo. They were things like asteroids, etc. It had dancing and something they thought was music. So yeah, I guess it was Space Cowboys. One question I have for everybody. Maybe I missed something, or maybe those darn Mystery Science Theater 3,000 characters covered up the dialogue at the critical place. But why is it called Moon 02? Was there a Moon 01? Was there a Moon 00? Will there be a Moon 03? I did not understand the 02. Please let me know if I missed something or the movie just had a goofy name. This is Inside BB. The plot, you could kind of figure out what was going to happen as you went through the thing. Of course, we had the damsel in distress, can't find her brother, and of course, he was killed, and then it looks like she's in the end going to inherit lots of stuff. The protagonist, the guy, I'm sorry, I can't remember the character name. I should have written him down. He was an actor that was in all kinds of stuff. He was on every single TV show, movie, Avengers, I think, and all these other things on TV, U.S. and England. And she was on most of these things, too, including many science fiction things. What about the plot? Well, actually, they did a reasonable job of having a real plot. There were bad guys, there were good guys. Well, the main protagonist was kind of a seedy good guy, but he ended up kind of being good in the end because he rescued the damsel in distress. Remember, this was a Western. And there was a Whipley Snodgrass or whatever, the evil villain. He didn't have a handlebar mustache. Instead, he had like a monocle, which looked real goofy. And by the way, that was also a famous actor that was in lots of stuff. It had that British sensibility, which is kind of hard to put a finger on, but they made these movies. In some parts of them were reasonably good. I mean, this is no 2001: A Space Odyssey, but for a 1960s movie, the outdoor, the view of what the moon looked like was okay. Them riding around on these space buggies was okay. They looked okay. The spacesuits were sufficient. They had little small oxygen tanks in the back, but they were okay. So again, it was sufficient. It was okay. But other things were not okay. Every time they came in and they showed you a control panel or something, they had stupid labels that were made, looks like, by amateurs. They were really goofy kind of looking. They didn't match each other. So other parts of this were not okay. So my view of the plot and the movie in general, Tom, some parts okay, some parts not okay. I think that kind of sums it up. N5BB, thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. And I do have an answer to your question about the title, Moon 02. Let's see, our astronaut, what was his name? Anyway, our hero astronaut in this thing, I can't find his name, I can't remember. James Olsen played the character. That was his call sign for his spacecraft. It was Moon 02. So you'll hear exchanges. It was always, he identified himself as Moon 02. I assume another astronaut had Moon 01. So, and there may have been yet another astronaut with Moon 03. There might have been a Moon 10 and a Moon 12 or a Moon 1, 2. I don't know. You'll have to ask around, but that's where the name, where that came from. Okay, next up is, well, I can't talk to Tony because he hasn't seen the film. He didn't do his assignment this week. So I'm going to go to Jay, KG5DZW. Jay, tell us, what did you think about the plot for Moon 02 from KE5 ICX? And welcome back.
All right, this is Jay Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey. It wasn't terrible. Definitely worth doing a MST3K version over it, but I was going to watch that, and then I decided, you know what, I actually want to watch the movie. So it's like I don't know. It was tolerable enough that I wanted to watch the main film before I smack down on it. But really, I don't know. I'm not going to smack down on it because it's not a bad film. I am glad I had Bill bring up that it was a space western, because that's exactly what it was. And there's been better ones obviously made since then, but it's kind of funny, complete side point, but I'm surprised, as old as I am, I always thought space westerns were rare, but they're actually quite common. But anyway, I mean, what else to say? There's a big. Bill kind of already said it. It does fit some sort of old format of Western story, where you got people in distress, you got the independent protagonists, you got evil doers and whatnot. I don't know. It wasn't. I'm trying to think of anything really, novel to say, but there wasn't really anything novel. You kind of knew where the story was. You knew where the story was at any time, which is good, but you kind of also knew where the story was probably going to go. So, it was kind of boring in that way. I had to watch it at 1.25 speed because it was kind of slow. At 1.25 speed, it was about perfect and tolerable, and well, as tolerable as I could make it. I did have to break at one point. Kind of boring. It really, but I think that's also just I don't know, a lot of things. If something isn't intriguing enough to me, I'm kind of want to, show-wise, I want to do something else or just go to sleep or something. And this movie was kind of that way, unless you sped it up. I really don't know. It's a kind of really standard tropey plot, but it was. I'm glad I watched it the way I watched it. It would have been nice to have had a little bit higher resolution, but and maybe the MST3K version was a little bit higher. I might just watch that, but I don't know. I was getting annoyed by the MST3K hijinks at the front, which is supposed to offset the silliness, but whatever. I know I haven't really said anything about the plot, but I just can't really think of anything good or bad to say about it. It's a story. K2-18b.
All right, thank you, Jay. Next up is Virginia, NB5S. She admits she saw the film. What did you think about the plot from KE5-I6?
Thank you, Tom. Well, let's see. To me, this felt like a plot that it could have been any number of genres, and they just picked, they wanted to make a stylized science fiction movie. Of course, everything after 1968, it's hard to not compare it, with 2001, and a lot of stuff in that era following looked like they were at least kind of inspired by it, and like the multicolored spacesuits, and I will give them this. I think they were generally not having much sound in space. I think Bill hopefully noticed that. They were kind of trying for that floaty, and they just had all that weird music, but that's a whole other round. So, you had this weird kind of bad guy who wants this asteroid, and you've got people he's trying to get involved in his scheme, and it got a little convoluted. I kind of lost track, not to mention that while we were right in the middle of it, Tony distracted me with a viewing of ISS, and I did run outside for about 10 minutes to watch that, so I lost track of some things in there, and there were just a lot of characters, and it's one of those things. And then you have the MST3K guys just making it hilarious, and it's something. If I really want to know whether or not I like the plot, I probably need to watch it again, but it was a pretty standard, heist sort of thing with a space twist, so they were at least trying, and, I think it could have been a lot better if they weren't so stylizing it or trying to, make it so groovy or make it so much inspired by other things. I think they might have gotten away with this plot if the villain hadn't been like a villain from Johnny Quest, and the whole sort of space western thing was a little dumb, but I think they were trying to show that, hey, we've been on the moon for a while, and there's this whole culture up here, and the one thing they did very much like 2001 is they seemed to have normal gravity on the moon until they conveniently needed to not have it for some kind of a goofy fight sequence in the saloon or whatever that place was. So that was kind of funny. So yeah, hard to follow at times, but probably mostly my own fault, and just seemed like a generic plot that they were superimposing onto a space movie because space stuff was kind of cool, and then they were superimposing cultural sort of trends onto it too, and I think it was, that was just a lot for this plot. It could have been okay, and the sort of reversal at the end where they, the guys that are taking advantage of them, they kind of get them stranded on the astronaut or the asteroid that's going to crash on the moon, and all that. They kind of like get them in the end, and so so there's a little bit of satisfying there, but yeah, fair to Midland. Could have been good, but just too much distracting from it. And if they played it a little more straight, maybe could have been better. MV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. By the way, your signal cleaned up really nice. It's almost very, very, very clear now. It was okay during the previous net, but everybody was a little noisy, and it sounds like the repeater is sort of correcting itself some. Now, I say that, and it'll suddenly get terrible again, so we'll see. Okay, next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, Moon 02 from 1969?
Well, I loved it so much I bought the ship. No, seriously, I was trying to do the fun with I bought the company, but it didn't work. Kind of like this plot. You know, it was a standard plot. It was kind of a Western. I think the guy's name was Harry, the hero. Let's go back and look. I watched the MS3K version, but it's always hard for me to hear the dialogue because they're talking over it, and they're funny. And they actually brought up what we bring up about, you know, things making, you know, or not making sound in space, and so I thought that was kind of funny. So I went back and watched the original, and you know, you've kind of seen the plot before. You've got the evil bad guy, and he's conning the pilot into making this run. The hero, I don't know why, and I'm sure it doesn't look like this visually, but for some reason I kept thinking of Han Solo from Star Wars when I was watching our hero, and I don't know why that was. I just had that feeling, kind of, for whatever reason, that stuck in my head. Can't talk about music yet, but that stuck in my head too. It was slow and just kind of drug on. I mean, yeah, there were shootings and fights and stuff, but it I don't know. It was a strange movie. I'm not saying it was the worst one we've watched, but it was just, it seemed like it kind of meandered a lot. Or maybe I meandered. Maybe you had to be in the 60s and on some psychedelic drug to appreciate it more. That's all I got. W5BLT. Back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Bill. Yeah, maybe. Somehow drugs seem to have been involved somehow. Okay. Let me see. Brenda, WB50ZL, are you home? Are you safely someplace where you can describe your thoughts on the plot for our fine film? Please let me know from KE5I6. I suspect she's probably preoccupied and still driving. She was taking care of the kiddos tonight, so she may be still on her way to her destination. Well, I will pause now before I make my comments and ask if there are any additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name. And did you see tonight's signed movie, Moon 02 from 1969?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this film.
right, usual suspects have checked in. KB9SOK. Sean, we are at plot. What say you about the plot for Moon 02?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I think everybody's pretty well said it. It was definitely very stylistic. The one thing I did kind of like was, when they did this film, they did surprisingly try to make it somewhat, and this is going to sound weird, believable, just because this was the kind of stuff that was talked about back then about the future, what we thought the future was going to be. We thought at some point, we would have a base on the moon. We did think that there would be, actual commercial flights to the moon someday. And then they talked about back then about, mineral rights and stuff on the moon. Would it be allowed to be commercialized? And then, even now we landed a probe on an asteroid to collect samples. Obviously, different companies have looked into, mining and, trying to gather resources from asteroids. So this is all stuff that we're actually starting to come possibly true in the near future. And they had this ideal back then to kind of make a movie based around all that. So I'll give them credit on that. I can see this outline being handed to the studio and then going, wow, yeah, no, that sounds very futuristic. That sounds really cool, But unfortunately, the writing around that ideal just didn't meet to the ideal. Because the concept was nice, but yeah, they tried to make it like this fun, lighthearted 60s romp in space, and that's really what it was. It just kind of almost, we had our villain, which kind of reminds you of a Bond villain. We had our very casual hero that was just basically living by the seat of his pants and just, obviously just going to do whatever suits him, but yet he does everything perfect, and all this and that. So yeah, it was just, it was almost, you couldn't really take it serious as a drama or even as a serious science fiction film. This was almost a borderline comedy, just kind of like it was meant to be just a fun, simple popcorn movie to watch. But the writing just wasn't that great in this one. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't all that great either, to be quite honest. And then obviously there's some interesting third round things to talk about with the effects and the music and all that. One weird thing about the plot I'll just mention now, kind of, somebody brought up about gravity on the moon. It's like, how do you do that? And two, why would they have a switch out in the middle when they open for anybody to press that? Shut the gravity off. So, there's just little quirky things like that almost had a almost awesome power spiel kind of to it. Just stuff that was completely ridiculous mixed with almost trying to be a serious movie. So, just a little odd. I also do watch the MKS3 version of this. Last week's was much better. I thought last week's, they actually had a story. They had their timing perfectly matched up when they were watching the movie. They, sent those jokes out when important dialogue wasn't being talked about, and was more selective with their jokes. And I thought last week's was better as far as they go. This week was obviously a much older version, very early on in the start of that show, and they kind of overdid it, in my opinion. They were constantly telling jokes every 2 seconds, and you couldn't hear 50% of the dialogue. As time went on, they learned when to, throw the jokes. At least let people say their bit, then throw the jokes. So, yeah, so both were a little bit of a letdown. The movie, and I felt the MK3 stuff was also a little bit of a letdown this week as well. But anyway, that's about all I got for the plot. Back to net, KB9SOK.
Very broken up.
All right, thank you, Sean, and interesting comments. Well, Brenda says she is home. I'm going to give her a couple of minutes to get situated before she comes on. I'll make my comments. But I discovered something. I don't have much to add to the overall discussion about the plot. I actually fell asleep in the second half of the film, so I had to read the synopses to figure it out. It just wore me out. But the director is Roy Ward Baker. Now, that name didn't it sounded vaguely familiar, and here's the reason why. This guy was no lightweight. He's a British director. He worked for Alfred Hitchcock. He had done, I think this film you may remember, A Night to Remember, about the Titanic tragedy. He did Marilyn Monroe and it did the movie with Marilyn Monroe where he directed for Fox, Don't Bother to Knock in 1952. He's also known for a whole bunch of television shows, The Avengers, one of my favorites, all British of course, The Saint, The Persuaders, Human Jungle, The Champions, Randall and Hopkirk, Deceased it was called. So I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4 of these shows, love them all. I'm sure I've seen his direction on some of these. He also directed Betty Davis and The Anniversary of 1968. So this guy was no lightweight, and he said about this film, he said, we never had enough money and the film never got off the ground. So the guy was certainly capable of directing a good film, but being saddled with a low budget, he wasn't able to do a lot, I guess. I'm surprised he kept it on his record as far as, on his resume, because this is a tough film to do. It had some aspects that were interesting as far as the plot was concerned, but I agree with everyone. There just wasn't enough time or effort that could be put into it to make it look better. I also think that their main guy was miscast. There's just something about him I didn't like. I didn't like our antagonist, the millionaire. He was just over the top. It was kind of silly. It sort of felt like a Matt Helm film without the Matt Helm funniness to it. It just didn't have a lot going for it. I didn't know what to think, and my body made the decision for me and said, this is a terrible movie, and I'm going to sleep now. Good night, and I went to sleep. So that's my take on it. All right. Think from KE5 ICX.
Tom, you cut out. Who are you turning it over to? This is Inside VB.
I was giving it to Brenda. I was giving her some time to get situated back home. So, Brenda, WB50ZL, you're up.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I'm all settled now, and I think I'm back on the thing kept kicking me out and wouldn't come back, but I think I'm all set now. Never seen this movie before. Kind of wish I hadn't seen it now. It was awful. It was boring and stupid. And I lived through the 60s. It reminds me of a lot of bad movies we had in the 60s. Everybody wants to make a movie. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It didn't have enough going for it. The script was awful. Acting was, it was okay, but that music, what in the world was up with that awful music? I think somebody else commented, it's just it's the 60s, we're going to make a cool and groovy movie, and that's what they were aiming for with the dancing and the costumes that were not serious for space travel at all. And my favorite part was lever on the wall like a fire alarm where you turned off your artificial gravity. I thought that, especially in a bar where people are drunk, that was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. That just anybody can reach up there and pull a switch just for fun. Yeah, I just, a big part of the movie, I couldn't figure out what was going on, and whenever I did, it's like, nah, it's just not that interesting. So, bless their hearts. They tried. They didn't have the money. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have the recipe. It's just, this is a year after 2001. I think they're going on the coattails of that. Everybody likes space. Let's make a space movie. And fell obviously far short of 2001. But this is what happens when you don't put much time or effort or money into a movie. You end up with something that's really subpar. All right, I'm going to turn it back. Thank you. This is WB5OZL.
All right, very good. The jury has spoken, and we have two individuals who have checked in and now can make comments about would they dare risk watching this film. So I'm going to start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, you claim you didn't see the film. Would you want to see it now? From KE5ICX.
Hey, Tom, Erin says hi. She misses you, too. We all miss you up here. I think I might go back and watch last week's movie more so than this one. I'm still a little bit more interested in that, and the net hasn't really changed my mind much. But, MST3K is pretty good background. You're folding laundry or whatever, and hey, there they are, and they're pretty entertaining. So I gotta say, I think I'm gonna try last week's. I had to go to bed really early because of a volunteer thing, and I kind of regret that because it sounded neat, and it still sounds kind of neat. NT5TM.
Oh, Tony, yes, Space Mutiny. That was last week's movie, and you'll be unpleasantly surprised that all the special effects are from Battlestar Galactica. They just name everything different. So be ready for lots of that. All right, Doug, KJ5DZC. Doug, if you're still there, you've heard what the jury has to say. What do you think? Is this a movie that you would want to see, or will you skip? You won't hurt my feelings either way. Well, you might if you decide you actually want to see it. That might hurt my feelings, thinking that, well, go ahead, from KE5ICX.
I am still here, and the bottom line up front is that I don't think that I would watch this movie. I'm still caught in Welcome to Blood City from a couple of weeks back, which was fascinating to me. But I think for me, there have been a couple of comments about the 60s and things that were happening in the 60s, and so I'm thinking about Barbara Stanwyck in The Big Valley. I'm thinking about Melody Patterson in F Troop. Remember Captain Palmer's girlfriend? I'm thinking about John Wayne, Red River, and some of these other westerns that are well known. And I'm not hearing these sort of characters in the future. And I think human nature is doing what it is. It's like these kind of characters would exist in the future, and I'm just not hearing it. So maybe it's sort of like, again, 2001 is out, and so everybody wants to make a space movie. The front-end analysis is not there. The writing is not there. They have a big-shot director, but, hey, maybe they just put some money in it, and everybody wanted to make their dollar. and they cranked this thing out and didn't give too much thought to it. So I'm not going to watch this movie. But I do enjoy listening to everyone. This is a great net. K2-18b.
All right, Doug. Well, thank you for your comments, and I think you're good to skip that. I will give you a couple of space westerns that you may or may not know about. By the way, I agree with you with Blood City. I found that strangely interesting, as we all did. I'm not quite sure why, but of course, I think it came out before Westworld, but which sort of had that vibe. But at any rate, I did not mind Blood City. I thought it was interesting. But the two shows that I remember, television series that were westerns, is of course Firefly, Serenity. They made the movie Serenity, but Firefly, which is a short-lived Fox series back in the 90s. Really great, a lot of fun. It is definitely a western, if there ever was one, with the outer planets and all that. In this strange solar system, wherever it was, where every planet is occupied by humans. And then another one, which I just recently completed, the 6 seasons of The Expanse. If you like space westerns, this is definitely it, with a little bit of political intrigue. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Reminded me a bit of Babylon 5. But which also has a Western vibe, but I think the Expanse even more so. If you've got time, that's over on Netflix. It took about a month and a half to get through the whole series from beginning to end, and I really aggressively watched it. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a good series. I would call that definitely a space Western. Okay, let me see. Next up is characterization. I'm not sure we're going to be able to take that anywhere, but maybe we will. We'll start at the top with Bill, N5BB, characterization. What do you think?
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. And I just want to make a comment first. Talking about Westerns in general. There were the U.S. Westerns. There was more of the Bonanza kind of. There was the Dodge Western, or Tombstone, Arizona. There were the Westerns kind of looked like they were occurred in Mexico. Those are kind of U.S.-made Westerns. There were the spaghetti Westerns made in Italy. They had an interesting different look at them. There were even some German and French Westerns. But this was a British thing, okay? So think about a little bit of kind of Austin Powers mixed with the Avengers, mixed with go-go dancing kind of things in a club, mixed with the British technology, if you think about the technology on some of the British movies, which just it's kind of weird to us, kind of crude. This is a British take on this. That's what makes it kind of weird. So no Barbara Stanwyck in this. But there is a femme fatale, and there is a hero that rescues her and shoots up everybody along the way. Just kills a whole bunch of people. And for those of you that missed the plot, real quickly, you don't learn this till near the end, but there's a woman that was going to the moon to see her brother, who had a mining claim on the far side of the moon. And it turns out that he was killed by the bad guys. And so, just matter of chance, the hero, Bill Kemp, who is kind of a disreputable hero, he was hired by the bad guys to get an asteroid, strap a rocket to it, or an engine to it, and land it on the moon. Well, they were landing it where they killed this one lady's brother, which was a coincidence which was too good to be true. Okay? That's why the plot was goofy. So that's what happened. He was trying to help the bad guys because they were going to pay him and they were threatening him to land this asteroid down with all these minerals on it, sapphires supposedly. And where were they going to land it? Well, on this lady's brother's mineral stake. And they had killed him. Anyway, so to tell you the truth, I mean, there's a little bit of a reasonableness to the plot as well as a goofiness. It's not completely zero. This is in 5BB. And, but as it was commented earlier, the music was stupid. Okay, as far as the characterization, the main protagonist, Bill Camp, and his female sidekick, Clementine or Clem, Haplin? What's her last name? Taplin. So Bill and Clem. I thought that the characterization of the main protagonist, Bill Kemp, was so-so. You couldn't really tell was he a good guy or was he willing to break a bunch of laws and be a bad guy. He sure shot a bunch of people in cold blood, but he was doing that to rescue himself and the damsel in distress. That's why this is a Western, because the guy with a gun, it's like the Wild West. The guy with the gun just out there to protect himself and his family and other people, he just shoots up all the other people willy-nilly. But he's got a heart of gold. It's like one of those things, those cowboy things. So, you know, I guess that was kind of okay, but kind of goofy. The damsel in distress, Clementine, she kind of was okay, a bit goofy. It's like she didn't really know what she was getting into when she went to the moon and exactly where her brother was or anything, which kind of made no sense. And we didn't really understand very much about her background or Bill Clem's background. They were there on the moon, and they clicked. The bad guy, J.J. Hubbard, he was just evil. He looked evil, had a monocle kind of thing, which wasn't really explained. He had all his henchmen did the bad things. So very, very, by the book, Western kind of thing, the good guys and the bad guys. And all the henchmen that worked for the bad guys. That's the way those movies were. The bad guys come in a group on their horses. That's exactly what happened on this. They just weren't in horses in this case. The bartender, well, he was a bartender in a Western saloon. What can you say? He had the button to press to turn the gravity off, or somebody did, to help him get out of the fight. Very goofy, I agree. Again, the characterization was just what was required for this, be slightly comedic Western kind of space romp. It wasn't supposed to be serious. It really wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was supposed to have a little comedic attitude toward it. A little bit of an Austin Powers. I mean, look, they had dancers in the bar and everything, and it's supposed to have a little bit of a comedic part to it, okay? Even though it wasn't funny, if that makes any sense. And of course, the protagonist's sidekick, the engineer, he, of course, came through in the end and did all the things to rescue everybody, and that was all by the book. You know, this is a very by-the-book kind of Western, kind of melodramatic thing. Wasn't really anything new about it. They just put it on the moon. Guess that's it in K2-18b.
All right, thank you, Bill. You filled in some details for me during my slumber period. And next up is Jay, K2-18b. Jay, what you got on characterization for our fine film?
All right, this is K2-18b, and you know, there's a few things I forgot to talk about in the first round. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about. I really don't think that those rockets, if they were supposed to generate like 100-ton thrust, I really don't think that. Excuse me, that cabling was enough to keep those rockets on. But anyway, beside the point. What I was going to say was that there's two stories. I think, honestly, that the cartoon at the beginning of the movie is a lot more interesting plot-wise than the movie itself. So I'm going to talk about the characters in that cartoon because I like everybody else is going to cover that. So we had the American astronaut, we had the Russian astronaut, and then they were fighting, and you know they went somehow got into the Moon City and had a rough time and actually became allies. There's a lot more character change there than within the whole film. I kind of wish that they stuck with whatever the intro cartoon, because that was kind of, I mean, it was silly and stupid, but which goes along with what Bill was saying, that the whole film was not meant to be completely serious. But the cartoon didn't really have anything to do with the film, except for that, yeah, there's Moon City. They admitted certain things exist there. I mean, there's no Russians, no, or I'm saying Russians, Soviets. Yeah, back then, definitely Soviet. Yeah, I don't know. The characters actually in the film themselves. I mean, the guy with the monocle is literally playing Monopoly with, you know, and what has Monopoly featured a guy with a monocle being, you know, the rich bastard that, you know, takes everything and whatever. So, you know, I mean, how much more can you tell about foretelling? Can you put in about a character and not really have them be developed or anything? Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, somebody mentioned there's the Han Solo aspect, which, I mean, this was made before Star Wars. Yeah, the idea behind the character is not bad, and I think that they may have even stolen from that for Star Wars, but it was a little bit better developed there. Just really was, I don't know. I mean, the characters played their parts. Wasn't much change, but they did what they could with it, and it wasn't bad. But again, I don't know. Not much to say really, because it was just kind of just think Han Solo and damsel in distress and an evil lord, and you kind of got and some engineers and henchmen and whatever, and the bartender. Love interest for the protagonist other than the damsel in distress, who also dies. But man, it's pretty shallow. I'll hand it to the next person, K2-18b.
Okie doke. Thank you, Jay. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Your thoughts on characterization and acting from KE5ICX.
Okay, well, there were a lot of characters. A lot of them were peripheral characters that were just there to be part of the Western trope that they were trying to put in space, and I don't think the whole Western and space thing even really worked. It's just there's such the two environments are so divergent that even when I was watching the gunfight in space, which is silly, watching people fight with pistols on the moon, I wasn't making that connection, because there wasn't much about even a mining, settlement on the moon that had enough in common with the Western towns that, the whole thing didn't even register for me. Out of that, the saloon, and they had the girls dancing, and at one point they were wearing cowboy hats, and, I just thought, oh, they're doing a cowboy theme now, and then I saw a few things that hinted at Western, but it just didn't strike me as a Western. It had too many things that were just too different from a Western, so that whole thing didn't work. There were just so many characters. The acting was fine. I mean, I usually give actors a little bit of a pass when they don't have a whole lot to work with, and any of these people probably would have been fine in any number of roles, that were good and a better movie, a better story. The guy, the rich guy with the big dastardly plan to hijack the asteroid. That he was a little over the top, but the whole thing did have that slightly over the top feel, and I think they were going for that. I think they were like, well, let's just cross some genres and even throw in a little. If they had gone with music that was more, this is more round 3, but if they'd gone with music that was less groovy and maybe more Western, that might have helped. They were just trying to cram a lot of ideas in. The cartoon at the beginning didn't have anything to do with this story, and that used to be a thing back then. I think they would do those kind of intros. I used to be always disappointed when I was a kid and I would watch the opening of a Pink Panther movie, and I would think, oh, this is a cartoon, and then it turns out, no, that was just the opening title sequence, and then I'd be disappointed that it wasn't a Pink Panther cartoon. So, really, characters, just a lot of them, they ran together a little bit. The actors were okay, and I will quit there, but I will end by saying, look it up. The Monopoly Man does not wear a monocle. NV5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Next is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts on characterization and the acting from KE5I6.
Well, I don't know that I can add anything more here, even for round 3. They do the job that they had, and sometimes you're just not given a lot to work with, and I think that's the case here. I think they were also trying to go for a Flash Gordon feel. Not sure that they really succeeded. I think this was double billed with another film, and they did bill it as a first space western. Whether it was or not is probably immaterial. That's just the way they billed it. And I obviously messed up the character's name that kind of reminded me of Han Solo. And maybe the reason is because he had a ship and was kind of independent. And then they were forcing him to do something or they were going to take his license away. But the evil guy, he did do the evil laughter one time that I remember. Maybe he did it some other things, but he did say to the hero not to get himself killed unnecessarily, which that was probably the only funny line. Not in the MS3K version. I mean, obviously I had funny lines, but when I was watching the original, that was kind of a funny line. So I don't really have much to add on the characters. It's just a movie to watch. Yeah, but it's not something I would go, oh man, I've got to see this again. I saw it twice, once with the MS3K and then the original from 1969, and I think that's enough. W5DLT, back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Bill. Next up is Brenda, WD50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization from KE5I6.
This is WB50ZL. The characters, on the whole, were pretty insipid. They weren't very well developed. The relationships were not very terribly complex. It was really just sort of, to me, kind of one-dimensional. And they weren't very interesting, on top of that. It was hard keeping them apart, of course, as usual. And I just kind of didn't care much about them. I think that's the main thing. Is when they irritate you and then you don't care about them, it's just kind of a lose-lose. So, yeah, they were way too much of this 60s business. I'm glad we're gotten away from that now. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, well, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't really have a lot to add. Everybody's already kind of said it. The characters are very flat, not a lot of depth. The thing had that weird 60s vibe. I think the actors did okay. Just not a lot to really dig in there. As everybody said, the evil guy was a little over the top, felt like a Bond villain or a villain from Austin Powers movie, or even a cartoon or something, just completely over the top. His henchmen, in every movie we had that same trope where the big, heavy guy is just dumb, because he's strong, I guess. We see that in every movie, it seems like. I think the biggest problem was probably our hero, and it's probably just the way it was written, probably not even on the actor. Something was just slightly off. I never had that vibe to where, they're trying to make him act like this really cool dude, but yet he was, this hero, super smart, could do anything. Basically trying to make him a James Bond character, but in space. But it just never came across quite off that way. Something about the character never made you feel that way. You never really felt that you would trust this guy to have your back. I think that was part of the vibe was just off a little bit. So it was hard to really root for them. So yeah, just kind of boring characters. Not a lot. As I said, this movie earlier, kind of act like it was just meant to be just an easy watch, almost a comedy. You kind of feel to it, but yet somewhat of an action movie. Yeah, kind of a strange one, actually. But anyway, not a lot to add, so back to that. KB9S, okay.
All right, thank you, Sean. It's starting to fade a little bit, folks. Let me go ahead and ask, is there anyone else out there that has not checked in yet that would like to do so? Tonight's movie is Moon 02 from 1969. Please come now with your call.
This is Alpha India 5, Quebec Echo Bob in Dallas.
People are alive out there. We got Bob, AI5QE. Welcome, Bob. Did you by any chance see the movie Moon 02 from 1969?
Well, I have to admit I did not. I went to the Facebook page earlier today, and I thought it was another movie. So I didn't watch it, but enjoyed listening to you, and I just wanted to check in so I wasn't just lurking. But I'm just going to listen and enjoy the fine commentary, and I'm sorry I did not watch the right movie, AI5QE, back to net.
Well, Bob, thanks for checking in. It's always nice to know people are out there. And lucky you did not see it. So I wouldn't consider that a bad thing. That may be a good omen when this is all said and done. This one was not in our top 10 list. I don't even think it's in our top 100 list. But, oh well. But thank you for checking in. Most appreciated. Let's see, my comments, I don't have a lot. Everybody else kind of kicked in with their comments, but the dance troupe was a real dance troupe. It was called the Go-Joes, which was created by BBC One TV music chart show in 1964, a show called Top of the Pops, and they would be there and dance to the latest tunes. So they were an actual dance troupe created by BBC. They also appeared on ITV as well, and were finally disbanded in 1971. So there you have it, a dance to everything. So, oh well. They also appeared in their final performance, it says, was Dancing to Jumping Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones on June 20th, 1968. Now that might be worth known. There's only one Top of the Pops performance by the Go-Joes that's known to survive. It's called Reflections by Diana Ross and the Supremes. It was transmitted on the 26th of December, 1967. So you might want to look them up over on YouTube. Who knows? That was about the only thing I wanted to mention. The other characters, who cares? I guess Catherine Von Schell, or Catherine Schell, she went by both names. By the way, she's still alive. She is now 80 years old. Played the Clementine in this. She is best known probably by people our age as Maya in the second season of Space 1999. In case you wondered if you recognized her from somewhere, that's probably the somewhere you remember her from. potentially other less prominent roles. That was a weekly role, so she was a co-star on that show, so she had a lot of exposure. Nothing else to report. Most of these actors that appeared are actually actors that were called up by our director, Roy Baker, numerous times, which is not unusual. So that includes television shows and things that he produced or directed. I should say directed. A lot of these folks also appeared in television as well as this movie. Okay, well, we only got 8 minutes, so this is what we'll do. It's special effects or anything else you want to add. So please come with your call and we'll go down the list. If you've got something to add, even if you haven't seen the movie, that's perfectly fine too. Please come with your call if you got something else to say. Wow, I get the feeling everybody's tired this evening. I know I am. I'll make a quick comment just to fill it out. Special effects, I actually weren't too bad. They weren't too good. I thought that the set dressings were kind of interesting, with the exception of the bar saloon was a bit hokey. But I didn't mind that kind of TWA LaGuardia look that they had for the terminal or customs and all that. And it was pretty hilarious to see things that were kind of very similar to 2001, like the voice print identification going through customs, the multicolored spacesuits, the sterility of it in certain places. Although it was mentioned by Baker, he mentioned that he really wanted to make it look like it was rough and tumble, which we wouldn't see until, Star Wars in 1977. It didn't quite come off as rough and tumble as maybe they wanted, but the idea was there to give it the dusty old West. But at any rate, overall, bad film. Interesting idea. I think with this director, they could have done something with it if they had some money or time or backing or whatever went wrong. I don't think it was the director's fault. I really don't. So often it is. But in this case, or the producer, but in this case, I'm going to hold the director harmless to this. I think he was probably talked into it, and then it went downhill from there. So with that, let me bring up Facebook again, find out what next week's movie is, because I'm not quite sure. Please stand by. Okay, here we go. This one was actually recommended by somebody on the Facebook page, and I do not know anything about it. It's called Monster a Go-Go from 1965. Monster a Go-Go from 1965. Let's see here if I can figure out how long the thing is, or maybe a plot. An hour and 8 minutes long. It's a 1965 American science fiction horror film directed by Bill Rabine. The film is considered to be one of the worst films ever made. The plot concerns an American astronaut. There you go. There's the science fiction element. Frank Douglas, who mysteriously disappears from his spacecraft as it parachutes to Earth. Policemen and Lindsay inspect the landing site of Douglas capsule and notice a burn patch. And there you have it. There's enough for you. Well, it's only a little over an hour long. How bad could it be? Okay, that's it from here. Unless anyone else have any final comments, I'll give you one last shot at it. Please come with your call. Okay, next week it is. Monster a Go-Go. We'll see you then. Everybody have a good evening. I think I'm going to bed. I don't think there'll be any lost in space tonight. I'm pushed. We'll see you all next week. Same bad time, same bad station. This is K2-18b. I'm clear. Bye-bye.
I am reading about this Monster a Go-Go on Wikipedia. Oh, this looks like a really bad one. See you next week in 5B. Be clear.
Well, Tom, thank you for being here, and sleep well. NT5 PM.